Welcome back to another episode of A Recent Study Suggests. We're your hosts. I'm Robert.
And I'm Sam.
And today we have another special guest who I'm really glad took the time out of their busy schedule to join us, Raheel Ramzanali.
Hey, what's up? How are y'all doing?
We're doing well. A little cold on our end, but we're doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Likewise, I hate this cold weather. I'm not a big cold weather person at all. Like, give me, anytime it dips below 65, like if we get into the 50s, I'm done.
Yes.
Like, go ahead and I'm gonna go to hibernation mode.
Yes, it's so good to meet somebody else who hates the cold, because when I talk about the weather with people, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's so great, isn't it?" Like, no, I'm uncomfortable.
No.
I need to wear a sweater all the time.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't mind it because, you got all your winter clothes and all that stuff and you get to wear those.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I'd rather be in the 70s. I'll even take the 90s opposed to, anything below 50. I just can't stand it. That's just me. Unless I'm like snowboarding, then it's okay because you're moving, you've got all your thermals on and all that. So you're fine. But like just normal Houston 50 or below, hard pass.
Yes. I totally get that.
Yeah.
They're the same way. I want to introduce you a little bit. You sent over some like copy points, but the thing is, I already knew all of these things because I've secretly kept up with you, like kind of from afar.
Well, thank you.
Because you are someone that we had you on Past the Gravy, another podcast that I did like last year, and you were actually voted our favorite guest by the audience, and that's something that like I really liked you on the podcast, and so I kind of just kept up with you, and so a lot of these copy points that you sent over, I knew. You right now you have the Raheel Show, you have No Layups on ABC 13, you're a sports anchor on NTV Houston, and you've done so much just recently because I know there was like, COVID hit, this pandemic, layoffs, furloughs, you were affected by that. But what I really admired was that you didn't just like quit. You put in so much effort, so much hustle into what you do now, and that's something that I really admire, just kind of from afar.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words, first of all, man. And yeah, Pass the Gravy podcast being voted the number one guest out of all the great guests that Alex and the team and you guys put together last year was kind of cool. Just to let you in on a little secret, I did hire some Russian bots to help with the voting. So, no, I'm just joking. No, it was cool, man. And it was nice meeting you through that podcast. And that's what I love. Like, I love doing podcasts, one, because I've been podcasting since I was in college. So I'm going to date myself a little bit here. I was in college from 2003 to 2007. And I used to work at the student radio station at the University of Texas. And I would podcast all of my episodes from my 1 hour sports show that, I had to fight for. And I've always enjoyed how easy it is to share. And then I enjoy the fact that you get to meet people through podcasting, right? Like right now, I'm meeting Sam, right, for the first time. And that's because we just reached out digitally. We set this up and it's awesome. And so your network grows. And I love that about podcasting. That's why I'm doing so many different things. And, after, as you mentioned, the pandemic hit, I did lose my job at ESPN Houston, which sucked because I'd been there for almost 5 years, building up a show and all of that. And then I lost my Roughnecks job. I was a sideline reporter for the Houston Roughnecks with the XFL, which went bankrupt, and then The Rock bought back. So I'm one of the few people that lost 2 jobs during the pandemic, and it sucked, man. Like, and for a week I was down, and but when you have a kid and you have a wife, and luckily my wife wasn't impacted with her work, so that was a huge blessing. You can't sulk too much, right? You just get back at it and go, all right, figure this out. What are you going to do? And I reached out to all my contacts. Hey, I know it's tough times, but what can I do for you? Don't worry about the money. Just let me know what I can do for you, because I know right now it's tough times. So let me just work. Let me just stay active. Let me just do this. So it's been fun trying to grind and hustle and figure things out. And it's not done. I'm still way, 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 way away from the goals that I set out after being laid off. So it's still a grind, but man, it's been a blessing with the opportunities I've been afforded so far, at least.
Yeah, and it's that motivation and that kind of thing that led me into wanting to talk to you about this study specifically. But before we get into that, What is a recent study suggest, Sam?
So, A Recent Study Suggests is our podcast where we talk about recent studies, as the name would suggest, that sometimes are a bit questionable. They make us wonder, why is this a study? Who funded this? And why is it so bad? Is this actually real? And they just kind of start up a conversation, get us talking about them and questioning them a little bit further.
Yeah, right. A lot of the episodes we talk about, the headlines that we see, conversation started, they're meant to grab you, pull you in, and make you click. And with this one, we're talking about how most parents know what their kids will be when they grow up. And you have a daughter, and honestly, you're one of the few people that we know that has a kid. Most of the people that are around like our circle don't have kids or don't have plans to have kids. So that's one of the reasons we want to talk to you about this one, but also just like the drive that you have. And I wanted to see, where did that come from? Did your parents want to push you in this direction or that direction? Did you go the way that they wanted you to go to?
Yeah, so we'll start with my parents, and I'll backtrack a little bit. So I was actually born in Karachi, Pakistan. So we moved here to the city of Houston when I was 5 years old. So I'm an immigrant, and when you're an immigrant and you come to the States, you come here for one reason, and that's for education, right? So my parents, from the get-go, like many South Asian parents, focused heavy on education, and like many boys that like sports, I didn't care about education, right? So there was always this like butting of heads with me and my parents about, how much is education. I was always like a B student throughout high school and middle school and all that. And it's not like I didn't like it. I just wasn't interested, right? And throughout those years, the one thing that was interesting to me was always performing, whether it be acting, grabbing my dad's camcorder, calling into radio stations, whatever it is. I always enjoyed performing. And my parents did recognize that pretty early, but being immigrant parents, they didn't know what that meant. Right. So they never pushed me towards, joining an art club or a drama club or anything like that. To them, it was just, you make up your own choices and, we'll kind of help you out, but we would prefer you go into one of the traditional fields of being a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, maybe business, because my dad is a small business owner. But they never pushed me towards this. It wasn't until I got to college where I told them, hey, I want to be on TV. I want to do sports. And then in college, I figured out I really want to do sports radio. So, they still, till this day, my mom will have people approach her and be like, hey, we listened to your son's podcast, or we heard him on the radio station, or we saw him on ABC 13 or wherever, right? And she still has no idea what I really do for a living. Like, it's so funny. She literally is like, okay, cool. Where'd you see him? Like, what's happening? So they never pushed me towards this, but they never, they were never against it. They were just kind of like, are you sure you're making the right decision? But they never said, don't do this. So, but that's immigrant parents, right? Like, they have no idea. They didn't know this was an option for a kid that looks like me. So that's why I think more for that more than anything.
Yeah, they know what a doctor is. They know what a dentist is. They know what a lawyer is. It's when it gets to like arts and media. What is that?
Yeah.
What do you do there? How much money can you make? Will you be successful?
There's a lot of unknowns with that, and they just want to know that you'll be secure in the career that you choose.
Yeah, that's a huge part, is knowing what is out there, right? Because they know doctors, they know businessmen, they know lawyers, right, through our community. And this is a big reason why I try to give back as much as I can, talking to the youth, not only in my community with Asians, but also any minority schools. Like, I go to a lot of and talk because I want those kids to see that, hey, there's a person that looks like me that can actually do this. And not only that, the second part of it is, here's my contact information. You ever have a question about it, let me answer it for you, right? Let me be upfront about it, because I didn't have that. Like, I didn't know how much money a sports journalist made, because if I had known, I probably would have listened to my parents and been like, oh, I should be a doctor. That would be better. But I didn't know which school to go to or anything, because even my freshman year, I was at UTSA my freshman year, and I had to apply to the University of Texas. I didn't know which school to apply to. I applied to the wrong school and got rejected with a 4.0 GPA. And I called the chancellor and I'm like, hey, I have a 4.0 GPA my freshman year, and you rejected me to become a sports journalist. And he's like, well, you applied to the wrong school, buddy. Like, you applied to RTF. And I'm like, yeah, because it's radio, television, and film. I thought that's where it would be, right? And he's like, no, we actually have a journalism and communications program that you can apply to, right? I didn't know that because this is my first time doing it. There's nobody I can talk to. So I've made it a huge, huge part of my career, and just me, that I want to give back and let kids that look like me, look like us, that, hey, here's somebody that is doing this, right? Let me help you and let me guide you. So hopefully their parents don't make the same mistakes of like, I don't know what to do with my child, right? So that was just a little long tangent for you guys.
No, but that's really cool. I think that's really awesome that you're doing that, and you're giving them exposure that they wouldn't have otherwise. So maybe they've never even considered these careers because their parents aren't putting it in their heads. And so now they have that, so they can decide for themselves, like, oh, is this something that I may want to pursue in the future? Like, we're all in media related careers. And that's not something that I even knew of as an option when I was younger. My parents didn't have any expectations of me. I guess I was lucky in that way. I'm like third generation in my family, and so my parents were pretty well established in being exposed to the, I guess, American culture. And so it was just kind of like, you get to be whatever you want to be. So for me,
That's cool.
I wanted to be like Britney Spears. I was like, I'm going to be a singer. And that carried throughout my life for a very long time until I decided, like, wait a second, is there money in this? Like, nobody was pushing me to change career choices so that I could make it big or hit big. That was purely because I was like, where do I see this going? And I didn't give it up and decide to be in media because I was like, okay, that's where the money's at. I was always interested in journalism and writing. And I kind of took my love of Law and Order and kind of that like detective, like searching for the answer thing. And just like, oh, well, journalism is a good way of doing that without getting shot at all the time. Like, you might get shot at, but you're not sacrificing your life every day.
Yeah.
And so that led me to journalism. And then I had no idea that broadcast journalism would be something that I would be super interested in. I didn't understand that fully. I got a degree in broadcast journalism thinking, oh, well, there's lots of options with that. I could do radio if I want to do radio. I could do podcasting. I could be on the news, or I could write. So there's lots of options. And I just kind of like fell into it and fell in love with it. And that had nothing to do with my parents. That had 100% to do with me. So I'm really glad that my parents did not have any expectations of me. It worked out well.
Yeah,
I want to know your background too as well, Robert. Like, what was it like with your parents?
For me, my mom, she came to America when she was maybe 17 years old, like the same year that she had me. She had me young. And so she didn't finish high school. She didn't go to college. And she didn't speak much English when she got here. And so growing up, English is my first language because that's what I had to learn. I had to learn English. My mom is kind of unhappy that I don't know as much Spanish as I should. She's always making fun of how much I don't know Spanish. But she didn't know too much. So she didn't push me in any specific direction. She just wanted me to do something that I was happy with. And when I was younger, I wanted to be so many different things. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be a meteorologist, a baseball player. And it wasn't until I was maybe 13, 14, I started watching like online video and saw like a production company. And that's what like really got me into video. And with video, I somehow got into audio, and now I'm just doing a whole bunch of things like illustration. I'm not good at illustrating, but like I use those programs at times. And yeah, it had nothing to do with what my mom wanted. Honestly, I don't think that she could describe what I do now. I asked her like last week in preparation for this, I asked her, I'm like, Mom, what do you think I do? And she calls what I do, because she knows to do podcasting. She calls it my video pornográfico, which means my pornographic video.
What?
Yeah, because she knows I record podcasts, actually recording with camera, and so that's what she calls it. She calls it my pornographic video.
Oh my gosh. That is so
Wow.
cute.
So, and this is the interesting with immigrant parents, and not only, first generation, but when you go multiple generations that do have a recent immigrant genesis, it's the hard work that they instill in you, right? They might not be pushing you towards a certain career like the study suggests that we're going to talk about, but the hard work and dedication that you learn from your parents, whether you're watching them, you're going to work with them, because hell, if you're an immigrant kid, your ass was at work with one of your parents because they couldn't afford daycare, or they didn't trust daycare or a babysitter or whatever it is. So when you see that and you go, oh, look, my dad works 7 straight days every single week, it doesn't matter, and he gets every other week off, like once a day or once a week, then you go, damn, like if he's grinding that hard, then those are the expectations that are set upon me as well. So that's one of the benefits when you have that immigrant lineage, and you go, man, okay, because when you look at other established families that have lived here for 5, 6, 7, 8 generations, you go, well, they're pretty comfortable, right? And their kids are starting off a little bit ahead of the immigrant kids, and they might not have the same hard work. I'm not saying that all kids don't have hard work that grew up here with 6th generation, whatever it is. So I think with the immigrant kid, there's just that hard work that is instilled by watching your parents.
You're talking about hard work. In this study, so many of the parents that were surveyed, so there's 2,000 parents that were surveyed of school-age children. And in this study, so many of the parents expected or hoped that their kids would get into a STEM-related profession. And that was because of something that I touched on earlier, how they kind of hope that their child will hit it big. And what I thought was interesting is that was a little selfishly written. Like they were hoping this so that in the future their kid will then take care of them in their older years, which I think also kind of ties into what you were talking about before with like immigrant parents. And that is kind of something that you expect or would like to receive because they are so hardworking. So much of what their kids have is because the parents worked really hard to get them there. So they kind of just expect that, maybe they'll return the favor when we're older.
Yeah. I don't know. For my daughter, she is a first generation American born kid, right? So, I mean, the expectations are the same. I hope you take care of me when you're a little bit older, man. But also the money side, right? Like I want my daughter to be really happy in whatever career she chooses. That's something I've learned along the way, is where I differ from my parents is, yeah, they want me to be happy, but they also want me to, pursue a degree in medicine or whatever it may be. But then when you explain to them like, okay, good, you're enjoying life and great, my mom will still say, hey, when are you going to go get your master's, right? So like there is still some of that education based, hey, why don't you go do more? And maybe that will make you happier. And I'm like, no, I'm super happy right now. I want my daughter to be happy, but I also want my daughter to be financially set, right? Because unfortunately for people that don't have money, like I know the saying goes kind of deaf on people, like, oh, money isn't everything. Money doesn't buy you happiness. I'm telling you from a person that, grew up in a lower middle class home, sharing a bed with my brother for the longest time, money is actually really cool. And money does make you happy. Okay. I'm sorry. Like it does.
You're right though.
Yeah, like I want whatever my daughter does, I hope it is financially rewarding as well, where she has a happy life, right? Because that starving artist thing is great until you're like, hey, you want to be that starving artist? No, actually, I don't, because I don't want to, so it's like you don't want to do that, right? So I understand the financial side of it too, but I am more focused on, hey, be happy in whatever you choose, because then you're going to go harder at that goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the parents push kids to, what Sam said, STEM-related fields, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and it's because it's what what they're incompetent with, right? The parents maybe aren't familiar with these things, so they want their kids to be familiar with these things because those are well-paying jobs.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they are.
And jobs that don't go away, right?
Right.
Like science jobs are not going away. Technology jobs, for the most part, are not going away. Engineering jobs are not going away. The world is always going to be needing engineers on every level. So I'll tell you, like, here's what I'm pushing my daughter towards, and it is STEM as well. But it's not because I'm not good at it, but it's more because I couldn't pursue this. I want her to be an astronaut. That's my number one dream for her. And whether it be watching movies, putting, space related stuff as her homework, just always like putting in space questions. I just want her to be an astronaut because I think that is one of the coolest careers ever. And I just could never make it as an astronaut. I actually did try to apply because, every year NASA does an open call of astronauts. And it doesn't matter what your career is. It doesn't matter all that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it this year because I have the physical requirements, right? Like all the physical tests, I will smoke those, right? Then you get to like the main question on the education. It's like, do you have a master's in something? And I'm like, I actually don't. So the application ends right there. So for her, I really want her to go into something space related. I hope it's an astronaut, but there's so many jobs around space that you can make a difference in the world, right? So I think that's just one of the coolest things. So I'm always pushing her towards that STEM related area as well, but just more because I couldn't make it.
Does it look like she's interested in it too? Or is she like fighting back a little bit?
She's kind of, she's 5, so she doesn't. She's 5 right now, so there's no like career path. She's interested in everything. So like I push her to play soccer a lot, right? Because I want her to be on the women's national team one day, hopefully, right? How cool would that be? A Pakistani American immigrant's daughter is on the U.S. women's national team. I think that'd be awesome, right? So I'm pushing her towards that, but I'm also pushing her towards anything she wants to do. So if she's like, hey, I really want to try, cool, let's go try it, right? Because one, you just want them to be happy and pursue something that they're passionate about.
I like how you mentioned that the reason why you're kind of pushing for her to be an astronaut is because you feel like she would make a really big difference in the world. And it's interesting to think about, the world as it is right now and how parents might be pushing their kids towards careers that will make a difference and that are needed. Like maybe they're pushing their kids more to be doctors and nurses and surgeons and all of these things that the world kind of needs. Like maybe the world doesn't need another chef or another.
That was my favorite. It's like 28% of the parents are like, I think my kid's just going to be a chef or a food related. I don't know. I mean, like, no shade at the chefs out there in food related.
We need chefs.
Yeah, you need them. But like 28% of parents going, I guess he'll just be a chef or something. I don't know. Well, and not every chef is a Michelin award winning chef, right? Little Caesars needs a pizza cooker too. That's a chef, right? So I don't know what levels of chefness are we talking about here with the parents, because I know some kids, and I'm like, he's not going to be a Michelin award-winning chef, but he's going to kill it at the Olive Garden. My man's going to be an award-winning Olive Garden chef.
That's a good point because a lot of the careers that they would prefer their kids to have are all obviously very intelligence based. Like, okay, maybe if my kid doesn't have the brains for it, they have the hands to make like a pancake. The study also talks about the parents' areas of incompetency, and so the list is like mathematics, technology, science, writing, grammar, history, fitness, culinary skills, and the last thing was arts. And I think that's kind of funny because we kind of land in the arts. There's a lot of unknowns in that, and that could be a lot of other people's insecurities. And they're like, okay, well, maybe if I'm not particularly good in this area, my kid will not be particularly good in this area. So you kind of just want to like pave the way for something that you will be able to help them out with. And if they can't help them out with that, maybe they're setting them up for failure on some level.
See, this is where I'm confused about these parents. Being a parent now, right, in this era of social media, of internet, all that, any of those weaknesses that you mentioned, there's resources out there for, the kid to learn. So it's not the old days where you would come home and your mom and dad have to help you with the homework because there's no other avenue. Now it's like, if I don't understand something, and again, she's in kindergarten, right? And if I don't understand something, guess what I do? I go straight to YouTube and find a tutorial and put her in front of it, right? Just because I don't know it doesn't mean that she should suffer and not learn it as well. So I don't know, man. Like they must have been calling some parents that are really bad with the internet, because like all of the parents that we hang out with on our street, we all do the same thing. Like, oh, we don't get it, not a big deal. Let's just find it on YouTube. Like there's tons of content on everything. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody has put something out, and if they haven't, then somebody will, because everyone's going through this, right? So like that didn't make sense to me, like why those parents pointed that out. I'd be like, oh, I understand all of it because somebody else does, honestly.
Yeah, like who are these parents and why did they choose them?
Yeah,
I think that's an important note to make, because one of the things that we do in our podcast is we question these studies. So maybe this wasn't a very representative group of parents that they surveyed. Yeah. And that's okay to question that kind of thing and think a little bit further, like, okay, is this really applicable to a more diverse amount of people? And does this really make sense for us? And in this case, maybe this is just a really old group of people.
It could be, man. It could be. Could you go through that list again with the percentages? All the topics there?
Yeah. So for the parents' areas of incompetency, so mathematics was the number one. 38% of them feel incompetent in math.
Wow. Hold on. So there's almost
half.
That 62%, right? That feel like they're competent in math. That's pretty impressive.
I think that is impressive.
That is pretty impressive, right? I'm not the only one that thought that. I was like, dang, that's because right now math is easy, right? When you're in kindergarten, but as she gets older and we're getting into algebra again and calculus, oh boy, I'm in that incompetency of 32 range or whatever, 38% right there.
That's true. That's a really good point. Like a lot of these, when you flip it and you think about it in the reverse, a lot of these parents think they're a lot smarter and less creative than they think. Yeah. So the second was technology. 38% or 36% feel incompetent in technology. 30% feel incompetent in science. 28% feel incompetent in writing and grammar, 27% in history, 23% in physical fitness, 23% in culinary skills, and 21% in art.
All these parents are lying.
Yeah.
There's some lying parents right there, because again, when you flip those numbers, you telling me there's almost 70% of parents that feel confident in science.
Oh gosh.
Technology, I understand. Like technology, I think again, I don't know the age range, but I understand, like, I feel pretty confident in technology and I think y'all do. And if you start polling a bunch of people that are kind of in the age range that we are, then we would understand, like, tech is easy. Science, unless you're a scientist, man, then you're lying. Come on. That doesn't make sense to me.
Do you think it's like, oh, I feel competent, like I can help them make a volcano for their elementary school project, and that's what they're thinking, like that's what science is?
Maybe, yeah, you're right. I actually did that, as part of the COVID, as part of the COVID days there, we have a science kit that we got for her, and there's a volcano experiment in there, and they give you all the chemicals and all that, and I messed it up. Okay? Like, I'm not gonna, like, it gives you step-by-step directions, and I was like, wait, this volcano it's not like it's supposed to be. So I messed it up. So I would be in that range of like, oof, I'm pretty incompetent here, even with the volcano.
That's okay though, because volcanoes are supposed to look like a big explosion in the end, and they're kind of a mess. So maybe it worked out in the end. You just skipped a few steps and got to the.
I didn't have to clean it, so I'm good.
I've never done a volcano experiment, anything like that.
Either. We should do that.
Would it be as fun?
Why don't y'all? Yeah. Come on. There's a little project for you guys. You got to do the volcano one time. It's pretty easy. It's not. I mean, it's just baking soda and then what was the other chemical? See, I already forgot it. But yeah, it's not that hard to make. Huh?
Vinegar, maybe.
Yeah, I think it is vinegar. And you put a little red food coloring in there, and if you want to make it more explosive, then you can do the Mentos based one, right? So you put a little Yeah, you put a little Diet Coke in the volcano area. So all you do is get the Play-Doh, mold it, right, and then put a little Diet Coke, put your Mentos, and boom, there you go.
The most,
We
I
learned
guess,
something. See, you know a bit about science. You're teaching us a little science experiment.
I think the most science thing I did like elementary school was for a science fair where we measured how absorbent diapers are.
Whoa,
What? That's very
that's
specific.
yeah.
But it really wasn't anything. We just had the diaper. We would pour water and just see when we would start dripping and when we start leaking. I think there was another experiment we did with reaction time where we would have a ruler and drop it at the bottom and we'd pinch it at the bottom and try to catch it. And then where we caught it like in inches, we could somehow measure like this is your reaction time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never anything cool with like chemicals and explosions or, anything that goes bang.
Yeah, I never did anything
I wanna
cool
know-
with science
yeah.
either.
Did you guys you guys never had to dissect any kind of animal in high school?
In high
Yeah.
school, yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah, high
had
school
to.
that was yeah, those are like it would stink so bad in that science room forever because it's not a one day thing, right? Like they really got the most out of whatever animal and it would be in that is it formaldehyde?
Yeah, formaldehyde.
Yeah, like it was in that, so it would just stink like a morgue pretty much. It was
Ugh,
nasty.
Yes, we had to do
Yeah.
that in high school, and they were like baby pigs. Oh, it was so
Oh.
sad. And you could choose to sit out, but you literally just had to sit in the same room and watch everybody else do it. And you
Oh.
had to participate in the group somehow. You just didn't have to touch it. You had
Yeah.
to smell it, you had to see it, you had to like test on
Oh.
it slightly without, I guess, touching it. But
Everybody, you can everyone that's listening right now, you can all smell that, right?
Ugh.
Like it's that smell that just reminds you of that nasty year, like was it 6 weeks of science?
no. I'm glad that I didn't get into a career that has anything to do with science and dissecting.
Some of the careers that parents wanted their kids to go into, we talked about STEM, 39%, healthcare and wellness, 33%, food, which I guess the chef thing, 26%, environment.
I don't even know what that means, really.
Yeah, people wanted their kids to go into environment, 24%. But what do you think?
Oh.
What does that mean?
And I guess, I mean,
Like-
wouldn't that be a science related then? Because if you're looking at, let's just say the greenhouse effect or global warming, that's what I would think environment would be, and that would fall under science.
Yeah, maybe that
Or
is kind
STEM.
of science, like maybe paleontology or anthropology, like understanding the world.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe that's a
Yeah.
good point. But I want to jump down to number 8, which is sport, and 21% wanted their kids to go into sports. And when I mentioned earlier, I wanted to be a baseball player, but I quickly found out that I am not good enough for this.
Aw.
And so I jumped ship. I abandoned that. I'm like, nope. I'm gonna maybe be an author, maybe be a meteorologist. Because in elementary school, I did do like the morning announcements, and we had like a production. It wasn't just like over the air. It wasn't like on radio through the speakers. It was you could roll a TV in back when you would roll TV ins,
Aw, yeah.
and people would play this. We had weather. We had this is what the lunch is gonna be, and there's just announcements in general. And I was a part of that for like 4th and 5th grade, and so that really got me into meteorology. I guess part of technology too, because eventually that's what I'm doing now is still video and mixing with some audio. But yeah, a sport I couldn't do.
Yeah, and again, I think the people or the parents that were pulled on that, they're lying. 100% of us want our kids to go into sports.
yeah.
Okay, they all right. Like, and then as they get better, you go, okay, hey kid, you're probably not gonna make it. Like, and sometimes look, the kid realizes that as well. Because I was like you, Robert, where I wanted to be in the NBA for the longest time, and I didn't care that if I was under 6 feet. It doesn't matter. Allen Iverson, when I was growing up, he's 5'9", 5'10". He's in the NBA. Why can't I be in the NBA, right? And then when I started playing high school basketball and I was on the bench for every single game, I was like, hey, I don't think I'm going to be making the NBA if I can't even crack my high school rotation, right? But I still wanted to stick in sports. And that's how I got into sports media. It was like, hey, but I still love being around sports. I still play, flag football leagues, basketball leagues. I love sports, a big part of who I am. But I would say for, any future parents out there, and I think you guys can attest to this, like you want your kids in sports because they learn so many good values that can't be taught otherwise, in my opinion, right? The failure from sports it's one of the best teaching tools out there for parents.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you said that we could attest for that. I feel like in both of our heads, we were like, no, because we don't want to have kids.
Okay.
And anyone who is close to us knows never to ask us like, oh, hey, when are you guys going to have kids? Like, we don't get any of those nudges anymore, thankfully.
Good.
That's just something that we've decided on for ourselves. And so I think that's another reason why it was so important for us to ask you to come on to this episode, because we found this article quite a bit ago and we were very interested in it. And we were like, well, we don't want to have kids. And we have no expectations of any future child. So it's really good to have the perspective of someone who does have a child and slightly is nudging her towards being an astronaut, but is like, open to whatever she wants to do. So
and play soccer. Make sure you play soccer, basketball. And she'll come watch me play basketball in my rec leagues when I go, and she'll always be like, "Oh, I want to play basketball. I want to play basketball." I'm like, "Good,
do it.
Do it absolutely." I don't care if you're not going to be a professional athlete, but I just want you to do it so you can learn hard work. There's always someone better than you. It doesn't matter who you are. There's always someone better, right? LeBron James is quite possibly the greatest player on the planet. And there's some years that Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard are better than him, right? So, it doesn't matter who you are. Somebody's better. And I think that's important to apply those values that you learn to your career. Doesn't matter who you are and doesn't matter what you've accomplished. There's somebody that's a lot better than you. So you got to keep going. You got to keep grinding. So I love that sports aspect. And I mean, I will push her if that's what she's like, hey, I really want to play on a bigger stage, then we'll keep pushing you. But those parents are lying. 100% of us want our kid to be a professional athlete.
Do you remember being sad or how you felt when you realized I cannot make it into the NBA? Yeah,
I remember the exact day. Actually, it was in high school, my junior year. I was on the JV team. It was again another practice, and it was the day before my Spanish final. Okay. The reason I remember this is because my coach was like, hey, we've got practice. And I'm like, well, I got my Spanish final that I got to really, I got to get a B in this class. One, because I at this point, I'm like, hey, I need to get good grades so I can play. But I'm also thinking, okay, do I want to go to the University of Texas? That was my dream school. And my grades weren't good enough. So I had to really get it going. And I remember that day going, what am I doing? Why am I here till 8:00 for basketball practice and games and stuff if I'm not playing one and if I'm not good enough, right? So I really need to buckle down and focus on my education. So after that, and that was towards the end of the season, I told my coach, I'm like, I'm not going to come back for next year because I need to focus on my grades. I need to get into the University of Texas. I'm not going to be a pro basketball player. So I had a pretty quick self-realization that I'm not going to the NBA, right? And this goes back to an immigrant parent. Now I look at kids where their parents understand that, hey, I got to get my kid onto the AAU circuit. I've got to get him with a personal trainer. I got to do all this. My parents didn't know that. Maybe if they have right now, my daughter goes, hey, I really want to become an Olympian, right? I want to play soccer for the women's Olympic team or the women's national team. I'm going to do everything possible, right? Because now I know, hey, I can get you with this trainer. I can try to get you into this program. You can go work out with these people. They'll see your talent, hopefully. I didn't have that, right? So who knows, things might have been different and all that, but this goes back to with immigrant parents, they didn't know, right? They don't know how to push you towards something that you want to pursue. Instead, they just push you to something that they know, which is the traditional careers.
Right. With my mom too, like I said, she didn't know much English, so she couldn't really ask for help from people that did know. And she would work 12-hour days, 5 days a week at a Quiznos. And, sometimes I would be there too, helping her out because, like you said, no money for a babysitter, or didn't trust babysitter or daycare. And so she didn't push me in any specific direction. But one thing that I do remember, talking about baseball again, I was on the baseball team freshman year and my sophomore year, and I was bad. I was bad. I can say that now is bad. But I would, for some reason, when it came to be the last game or two, suddenly things changed and I could play. When it was the last game, only when it was the last game or two, our team sucked. We weren't doing anything. We weren't going to play any championships or anything. But it was the last game or two where I would just get a bunch of hits. I would strike out a bunch of people. I would just field everything perfectly. But before then, I was just making errors, wouldn't get any hits. people would hit home runs off of me. But for some reason, only the last 2 games. But I'm like, I'm not gonna keep doing this if I'm not getting any better. I thought I could get better after the first year, but the second year, still the same thing. I can't go anywhere. Like my mom can't afford to there's like Baseball USA here in Houston. I can't afford to go there. I can't do anything really.
Couldn't afford to keep going with it.
Yeah, and baseball is really expensive to keep going if you want to get better and, play on better teams. It is an expensive venture, right? Like there's numbers out there. It might be $20,000, right, for just trying to get your kid from little league to hopefully getting a college scholarship. And that might be a low number. Like I've heard numbers of 100,000, 120,000 sometimes. But ultimately, like those parents are thinking this as an investment opportunity, right? If my kid gets a scholarship to baseball, that's a $400,000 cost right there, right? Because that's 4 years of college. It could be more or less. So they're looking at it as an investment opportunity as well, like to save money. So yeah, baseball's tough, man. That's next level.
I can't speak to the sports side of careers, but for me, I mentioned that I always wanted to be a singer. And so for the majority of my life, up until I was about 18 years old, so I wanted to be like Britney Spears, and I knew that for sure when I was like 6. So from 6 to 18, I was like, I'm going to be a singer. So I devoted so much of my life to singing, and so much so that I was going to go to college for it. I was going to go to Sam Houston State University, and I was accepted, but I couldn't afford to go. So I was like, okay, I have to find something nearby. So I gave myself a semester to think about what I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, so there's no good like music schools near me, but I'm still interested in journalism because I was also in newspaper in high school and took journalism classes. And so I was like, okay, U of H is good for that. And so I didn't get into U of H, but I got into a community college. So here in Texas, there's a school called Lone Star. And I went there and I got a degree. I got my associates in speech communication. And I was like, okay, that'll lead me into journalism when I transfer to U of H, when I am actually good enough for U of H. And it's stupid. I was so surprised by how many speech classes I had to take. It's a speech communications degree. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of speech classes. And I loved it. And I didn't realize that I loved speaking in front of so many people and communicating with people as much as I did. And that was new territory for me. And it was so intimidating to be surrounded by people who have probably known for years that they wanted to get into a career that was related to speech communication. And I went headfirst and I was like, you know what? I'm never going to be as good as these people who have been wanting to do this for years unless I just go right into it. So I joined the school magazine and I was an editor for that. And so I was like, okay, I can write, I can still do that. But also I took it even further and I did a speech contest. It was a Pecha Kucha speech competition. And I had to speak in front of a bunch of people. And Pecha Kucha is basically this like fancy, weird way of saying like you have a presentation running behind you and it's timed. And you do it and it's supposed to sound off the cuff, but really you've planned it like months in advance. And I was doing it and I messed up in the middle. I was like, oh no, I got so in my head about it. And I remember saying, oh, I'm sorry. And I looked down at my notes and I was like, I just like swamped this. That went bad. And so that didn't go how I expected it to. And I was really disappointed in myself, but I kept going. I kept pushing myself. I was like, that made me really uncomfortable and I'm nervous sweating. But I like it. I had to power pose in the bathroom ahead of time because I was not confident. And I also did a poetry slam because I also wanted to do creative writing because I still wanted to do the writing. But that also was new territory for me. I'd never done anything like that. I've never spoken in front of a bunch of people where I have to recite poetry. And I was super nervous. And everybody who went before me, I swear they've been doing it since they came out of the womb. Like they were so good. And then there's me. And I was like, this after I did it, I was like, that was not good. But when I did it, I was like trying to put a little bit of like a rhythm to my speaking, which is something I had literally never done before I started talking in front of that mic. And didn't go well. It did not go well. And I was disappointed, but I kept going.
Yeah, you have to just keep going, right?
I got my degree. I went into broadcast journalism, and then I kept talking in front of people, and now I'm talking in front of you guys, and we've got a podcast, and I work in video too, and so like I wasn't good at something, and I knew I wasn't good at it, but I didn't stop. I kept going, and my parents are proud of me for it. They don't really understand what I do either. Like my mom is like, she always tells me, I don't know how you do what you do, because I've gotten into graphics too. She's like, you made magic happen. I was like, you made that out of nothing. And she understands that much. And she's like, it's just really impressive to me that you're doing what you love and you keep learning. So
She doesn't call it your pornographic video?
no, she doesn't call it my pornographic video. My dad
That's
does.
awesome.
My dad doesn't. He has no idea what I do really. He just knows that I walk around with a camera sometimes, and I'm in my room editing. But
And that's the thing, right? When you brought up what parents are incompetent in, and the arts are, not, so it's 5%. What was the number for arts again?
so for arts, in incompetency is 21% feel incompetent in arts.
Wow. So 80% or almost 80% feel competent in art, and that's pretty good. Like to me, that's a great thing to hear that they feel competent. But again, we don't know what arts is
Right.
defined as
Yeah.
in this study, right? Is it just, hey, go paint this or write a poem or something, or is it editing, media, and everything that we do? So that's a pretty good number right there. For anybody that's listening, right, parent or not. Like what you just said, Sam, is important because you just have to go do it sometimes.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't matter what career path you want to push your kid to, what career path you want to get into. It comes down to one basic principle of you just got to go do it. And you're probably going to fail.
Yeah.
You're going to fail. No matter how much experience you have, you're probably going to fail, right? But that's the important thing is through failure, you learn how to get better. And as you get better, hopefully that opens up more confidence within you and more opportunities for getting better or getting bigger opportunities for that career path. So, that's some advice that I just want to throw out there through your stories. Like you got to fail. Like, sorry, no one's going to be great and perfect at anything. It's impossible.
It's funny. 80% think they're competent in arts, but when it came to the parents' wishes, like of where they want their kids to go, arts, creative arts, and media was like at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
There's 14 in this list. Creative arts is number 12 with 20%, and media and publishing is 13 with 19%.
So that's for careers that the parents wish for their children, and they do not want their kids to be in arts and media. So we would be big disappointments to these parents.
I know, but I can't disagree with that number either, is because you go, okay, if my daughter came up to me and was like, hey, I want to become a journalist or a sports journalist, and now me knowing what I know, I'd be like, okay, cool. If you're really into it, and again, and these kids aren't my kids, but any kid I mentor and talk to, I tell them, it's going to suck for the first 5 to 10 years. Okay. You're not going to make money. You're going to be away from your family. You're not going to be in a comfortable place. So I'm just telling you right now, your passion for this better drive you, not your wishful thinking of like, I'm going to be rich off of this. Okay. Because you're probably not going to make a bunch of money. Okay. It's rare. Like it's like becoming a pro athlete that you're going to get this huge $1 million deal or multi-million-dollar deal. You're going to be in Beaumont. You're going to be in Allen, Texas or something away from your family. I always tell them that. And it's the same thing. If my daughter is like, hey, I want to become a sports radio host or a sports journalist or whatever it is, I'll tell her like, hey, here's what's in front of you. Okay. It's going to suck. So do you really want to do this? I'm not going to tell you not to, but in my heart, if you said, hey, do you want your daughter to be a sports journalist, an astronaut, a doctor, a dentist? I'll tell you right now, sports journalist is probably going to be towards the bottom of that list if I had my wish, right? So I can understand why. And I think it's because, that whole starving artist mentality that a lot of parents grew up around. Like, oh, you want to be an artist? What? You're going to be in New York living with 5 people in sharing a bed and all this. Do you really want that? So I understand why that is on there as well.
Just to finish out the list, the very bottom was tourism.
Which I think we can all agree, like, that would be on the top of my list of things that I want my kid to be.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be a weirdo and tell you my dream career. Like one day, what I want to do is move to Mexico and cheat surfing or any kind of water related. Like anytime we go to a beach area, I always tell my wife, I'm like, man, I think I want to just like, get be a teacher or be part of the tourism
Yeah.
industry, right? Like how cool would it be? You get a cruise full of people, dock, and then you go pick them up, you take them surfing, you drop them back, right? And that's your career, and you're around the
That is
water.
so
You
funny.
get to meet new people. So I would be that weirdo, be like, yeah, tourism sounds actually kind of cool. Like I think that'd be a neat career.
But you think it's a neat career because you've done all the things that you're super interested in now. And so it's like, okay, I've
Yes,
done
yeah,
all of those things. Now let me do that one thing that I haven't dipped my toes into
yeah.
yet and see what that's like.
Yeah,
That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. That's. I don't think I would want to do it when I was 18.
Yeah,
You're
like
right.
that's not your first choice, but it's still an option and you could
Yeah.
do it eventually.
and your wife tells you, well, you got to learn how to swim first. You can't just go straight into
Oh
teaching
man.
surfing.
Yeah, it's gonna. You got to learn that. That would be key.
But I think that's a good place to wrap it up. But I want to talk about Movember, this project
Hmm.
that you have going on for now, I guess.
Yeah, it's so we're recording this on November 1st, and I'm already behind because for people that are listening on audio and you might see the picture here as you download the episode, I have a full beard still. So what Movember is, there's a lot of different things that happen in November, right? There's No Shave November, which is just like this thing that guys created, like, oh, I'm just gonna keep a beard the whole month, right? That's not Movember. What Movember is, it's a foundation that is built on the mustache for the whole month, right? Like you clean shave on November 1st, and then you start growing in that mustache and you maintain that mustache for the whole month of November. And as you do that, that's a starting point when you meet people like, oh, you have a mustache now. Why? Why are you keeping a mustache? Well, I'm keeping it for Movember because I want you to donate. And because those donations go to help push men's mental health charities, men's physical health, whether it be testicular cancer. You got all the cancers that men deal with as well with prostate cancer. It's money that is helping, one, bring awareness, two, hopefully find solutions for these problems. And they're really pushing mental health as of late because 60 men, we'll lose 60 men to suicide every hour around the world, right? And that's tough, right?
My
And we've heard
goodness.
the numbers for our veterans here in the States. So men, we grow up with the machismo, right? Like, hey, you don't talk about mental health. You don't talk
Right.
about your issues that you're going through. You're the rock. You're the foundation of this family. And we're trying to change that, right? And again, this goes back to talking to people that look like me, these kids, that hey, it's okay to talk about mental health, even though my parents never focused on it, and people, that mentored me. It's something that you just don't talk about. It's so private now. Through Movember, I want to talk about it. Is hey, let's talk about our mental health. Are you having issues, right? Let's talk it out. Let's see how we can help you out. And all of these things, these projects are funded by Movember, whether it be the mustache and having that goofy mustache and getting funds and raising funds to that, or for my women out there, you can move 60 miles. And men, you can do this as well because I'm doing both. 60 miles, just go move in honor of those 60 lives that we lose with men to suicide. Go move, right? So you can donate to my team. You can donate online at Movember.com. You can sign up and create your own team. There's still time. It's not a big deal. But it's cool to be working with them. And I actually went to London last year. I was picked as a global mustache model, which is like it's the wildest thing ever. Like,
That's awesome.
this goofy kid that grew up in A-Leaf and Sugarland is now on buses and subways in New York, London,
Right, I
Toronto.
saw
My
that.
sister lives in Toronto, and her friends will see my face with my mustache, and they're just like, "What the heck? That's your brother?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's so crazy, right?" Like I have to pinch myself, but I'm using that like it's cool, it's awesome, right? But it's also a way to open up that conversation with people that look like us, kids that look like me, that hey, there are important things that we need to focus on so we're healthier, we're better as we get older.
That's really awesome. Now I know why Robert didn't shave. He usually shaves when we see each other on the weekends. And this weekend you
Yeah,
can
are
shave
you
now.
going to
Why?
go
It's for a good
mustache,
cause.
Robert? Is that what you're going to do? Come on.
Oh, I have terrible facial hair.
It doesn't matter.
But he's gonna do it for the cause.
You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it. Okay, you got it. So look, if you got to go clean shave today, November 1st, or whenever you hear this. Okay, like it's never too late. Do it. Clean shave it, and as your facial hair grows back, then you got to start shaving around and make sure the mustache is the key facial element for your face for the month. Okay. And I mean, look, my wife hates it, right? Because every Thanksgiving when we go see our family, there I am with my big mustache, whether it be the bar or just the normal thick mustache, right? But you got to do it, okay, Robert? There's no excuses, all right? Sam heard it right now, so she knows that you're in.
I approve.
Okay, she's not going to run away. You're good, okay? You're going to help out. We're going to raise money. You got this, Robert. Come on. Commit to it right now. I need you to say yes.
All right. I think you convinced me.
You'll see us on Instagram, and Robert's gonna look slightly different. You're gonna think it's a shadow, but really it's just his very light mustache.
And that's good. That if you can't grow a thick mustache, that's even better. You know what? You said you did it, and it doesn't even look like a mustache, so that's even better. Now you're not off the hook either, Sam. Are you gonna move 60 miles this month? Okay.
Oh, for sure. I'm always tracking my steps, so like.
Boom. So there you go.
No big deal. I might even grow out my mustache.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. That's a conversation for you two to have. You go to Movember.com/T/Team Raheel. You can register, join my team. You want to create your own team for the podcast, do it. But just register and start raising money, right? Post about it on social media. Tell your friends and family. Every dollar matters. And it's going to a great cause that's helping men from around the world, not just here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on with us, Raheel. It was really nice talking to you. Is there anything else you want to plug? Social media?
Oh man, if you're gonna give me the option, I will plug away now. Okay.
My list.
Twitter @the_Raheel, Instagram @Raheel Doing Things. You can watch me anchor sports daily on NTV Houston, the letter N, tvhouston.com. It goes every night at 9 p.m. They have a newscast, and you can watch me on there doing sports. You can watch me on Sports Spotlight every Saturday at 5 p.m. on NTV Houston. And then I do the No Layups podcast, as you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, with David Nuno of ABC 13. You can watch that every Thursday and Sunday at 1 p.m. Sundays, we kind of, depending on the football schedule, but every Thursday at 1 p.m. we're up there. We're also on the ABC 13 connected app. So if you're on, you got a Roku, an Amazon Fire Stick, Apple TV, download their app, and you can binge all of our episodes. Those are all. See, if you're going to give me the option, I'm a plug machine, okay?
No, we love it.
Yeah, go for it.
You are worth following. So
thank you so much.
We definitely want to give our listeners the option to find you anywhere.
Man, I appreciate that. Thank you again for having me on. I'm glad I could help you with this study, and it was a good conversation.
Mm-hmm. And if anyone out there has their own studies, you can always email them to us at arecentstudysuggest@gmail.com, or follow us at arecentstudypod on Twitter and Instagram. And be sure to rate us 5-star or thumbs up wherever you're listening to us. And once again, thank you to Raheel for joining us on this pornographic video.
All right, bye guys.